Right. Are we good? Is this thing on? Hello, and welcome back to Me Screaming into the Void. Today we are talking about Talk to Me. Why? Because it's one of my top 4 favorite Letterboxd movies. If you're not following me on Letterboxd, well, too bad for you, because I watch movies almost every day. Then you could keep up with me if you wanted to. I'm really looking forward to bring her back. Think it's gonna be released soon on VOD. I watched Talk to Me a couple of times, and it's still one of my favorites, and it's still giving me goosebumps. I had to sit down and talk about it because I just love when horror movies are done right, and I can relate on a personal level. Talk to Me is one of the most chilling, creative, and emotionally brutal horror movies of the decade, in my very subjective opinion. And no, I don't think I'm exaggerating. This is the feature directorial debut of Danny and Michael Philippou. They are the Raka Raka twins. They started off on YouTube. Before they did that, they even made a short film. So movies have always been something that they wanted to do from the beginning. And I'm so glad that they finally got to do it. They got a budget of 4.5 million and they went the indie route because they did get Hollywood production companies throwing money at them, but they wouldn't have the final cut, and they were so adamant about having the final cut that they decided to go the other way, and their budget was cut even more because they cast Sophie Wilde as Mia, and somehow the studios were like, well, she's not a big name, and I'm so happy they had her as the main lead actress because she was just amazing. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know that they were OG YouTubers. I had just watched a movie and I was like, who the F are these people who made this movie? When I discovered that, I started following them and following their journey. I even watched a YouTube video where they were filming themselves at the Sundance Film Festival and they got picked up by A24. It became one of A24's biggest grossing horror movies ever with 92 million worldwide. They had a budget of 4.5. I like that they filmed it in their own hometown, Adelaide, Australia. The cast includes Sophie Wilde, Alexandra Janssen, Joe Bird, Otis Danji, Miranda Otto, yes, Eowyn from Lord of the Rings. When I saw her, I was like, oh, I know her. Zoe Terakis, Chris Alozio, Marcus Johnson, and Alexandra Stephenson. It premiered at the Adelaide Film Festival in October 2022, then hit the Aussie cinemas in July 2023. A24 brought it to the US, and just like that, Talk to Me became the breakout horror movie of the year. I love the way the movie starts. We start with a one take. The camera just follows Cole, who is looking for his brother at this house party. You have music, you have people doing the things that they do when they're at parties. You even see the main cast peppered throughout the party, and you even see one of the directors when the brother enters the house on the left-hand side. So he's searching for his brother Duckett, who barricaded himself in a room. Already there, you're set up for the entire movie because the tension is there. The brother even breaks down the door, even though the friend says, hey, you'll have to pay for that. Once he breaks down the door, you find the brother all scratched and bruised, saying something like they won't let him go. And you know that something eerie happened. Cole takes his brother Duckett, drags him out of the party, and then you see that everyone is filming it. Like, oh, look, something weird's happening. Let's just film it. Haha, so funny. Not really. The brother also says, oh, you find this funny? What's wrong with you? Don't you see that he's in pain? Maybe a short spoiler. I, in my opinion, would find it a spoiler, even though it's in the first 5 minutes of the movie. You see how the brother stabs Cole and then stabs himself in the eye. When I first saw it, I was so completely taken aback from the scene, but also like, okay, the mood is set. I'm pretty sure this is gonna get really dark. And it did. But first we had a little bit of fun with it, as with all things. The party scene was the last thing that they shot, and it took 10 doors to do the shoot. I just imagine, the tension, because when you do a one take, everything needs to be right. The people need to be at the right place. You're supposed to say your line then. You're supposed to move this way. This is supposed to happen that way. Everything has to be in sync. And if it's not, you'll have to do the shot again. You can't just cut in the middle, because then you lose the entire momentum that you're trying to create in the very beginning of the movie. It's a shocking opening and also mirror foreshadowing for Mia's arc later. Enter Mia, played by the awesome Sophie Wilde, a 17-year-old still reeling from her mother's pill overdose 2 years earlier. That very day is her Remembrance Day. You notice from the beginning she is distant from her dad, she's also ignoring his calls. She's very much clinging on to her best friend Jade and her younger brother Riley, which is a very big theme in this movie. You will see throughout the movie that she's also described at the party for being clingy. I could very much relate to that character. It has nothing to do with you being cringe. It just has to do with you being lonely and you needing human connection. And the whole way through the movie, there is always scenes reminding us of Mia needing this human connection. Having lost her mother in such a violent way makes her cling to the people she loves because most probably she has that fear of losing them. She gets into the car and she goes to pick up Riley, who Jade, her friend, forgot to pick up. And as they drive in the car, they blast Sia's chandelier. It is a very beautiful scene because there is this kind of letting go and they're just having fun. And the fun is cut short very quickly by a dying kangaroo in the middle of the road. She gets out of the car and she sees that the kangaroo is really suffering, dying. The right thing to do is either kill it herself or at least call animal control. She can't even make herself kill the kangaroo. For me, it was like she already had somebody who she loved dying, and killing something living would just add on top of it, and she just couldn't face it. That night, her, Jade, and Riley sneak off to a party where the main attraction is a creepy embalmed hand. We already see when she is at Jade's house while scrolling through social media that there were videos showing that these people were possessed, their pupils were dilated, and even their physical appearances changed, showing signs of possession. Jade is quick to say, it's just fake. They must have put some kind of filter over it or something. And Mia is more intrigued. She's like, oh my God, let's go and see what's happening. They get to the party and already there you see that one of the friends at the party is like, ugh, why did you bring her? She's so clingy. Hit me so hard. I was not okay. I was like, let this poor girl be. You can see that she's visibly uncomfortable and yet she just is seeking some human connection and just wants to be there with other people. The origin and mythology of the hand is not very clear, also because the Filippo brothers did not want it to be too clear. They wanted some interpretation to be left open. I also am hoping that in Talk to Me Too, they will explain it further. I love the way that the hand is depicted. You have this ceramic hand and there is a lot of writing on it in different languages. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there is some Hindi on it. There is either Spanish or Portuguese. There is a lot of different people who have written a lot on that hand. One of the people at the party claims that the hand actually belonged either to a medium or a Satanist who got their hand cut off. It was embalmed in ceramics to be able to maintain it so that they could also converse with spirits. This hand has been passed down by teens as a haunted party favor, apparently, but the more the movie goes along, the more you realize this is not just some, hey, I'm gonna give you this hand, have fun with it, more of a, hey, here is the hand, I don't want it, do whatever you want with it, I don't care. The directors tell you visually and audibly how the spirits have died. For example, the first spirit that Mia gets possessed by, you hear this gurgling water sound in the background. She visibly looks like a person that has drowned. She's very bloated, there is water coming out of her mouth. It's very icky. I like also that they wrote an entire book on the mythology of the entire hand, and I think Danny Filippo said that he really wants to publish the book, and I would be like, please do. I would read the heck out of it. He also said that the other part of him is also excited to just plant the seeds in the movie itself and for people who rewatch the movie to figure out what's happening and the tiny little details that are connected to the hand. Hands have a very deep meaning in this movie because of connections. There is people who love each other who are holding hands, and you see Mia glancing at that before she gets to the hand the first time, as if she's kind of trying to replace that connection with the hand on the table. Fun fact, it wasn't the first draft in the script. the hand. In the first draft, it was already clear that human connection was a thing. The hand in the second draft kind of came almost naturally because they realized, okay, that is the perfect symbolism for it. The human connection is very much conveyed through the human hands. The inspiration for this came from Danny when he had a car accident when he was 16. He landed in the hospital and he couldn't stop shaking, and the doctors tried everything. They put on the heaters, they gave him blankets. The only thing that stopped him from shaking was when his sister came in. She held his hand and then he stopped. Somebody he loved brought him out of the state of shock he was in with touch. The hand doesn't just come for the obvious metaphor of spiritual possession, but also for addiction, grief, and the ache to feel something. As I said before, the hand is very much covered with etchings and symbolisms all over. Danny even teases that the hand is sort of like a Rubik's Cube, and some of the hints are there as well. So we're at this party, they finally bring out the hand, everyone is excited, taking out their phones, they're like at the edge of their seats, except for Jade. Jade is still a bit, yeah, sure, let's see how you can fake this. What you basically do is that you hold the hand, you say, talk to me, then you see the spirit, and once you see the spirit, you say, I'll let you in. You have a 90-second rule, and if you let it go longer than that, the spirit might not let you go. Mia goes first, and when she says, talk to me, she sees this guy, and she's so freaked out that she lets go, and they're like, no, you have to say, let him in, you let him in. And she's like, no, I can't do it. And then she goes again because peer pressure. I felt like she was peer pressured into holding the hand so that people will like her. That was the thing that was motivating her. And also for a human connection. But I feel like peer pressure also had part in it. She takes the hand, she says, talk to me. Then she sees this bloated lady the second time because the first time she saw the dude. Oh my God, the guy. Okay, so they filmed it during Corona time. The guy you see at the 19-minute mark, he had 6 days of quarantine for 15 minutes of filming. Think about it. He had to fly in. He had to quarantine for 3 days. He was put on set, had to immediately film 15 minutes. And then he was put out of the set only to fly back and have to quarantine another 3 days. The appreciation is really there for this wonderful ghost that we see in the very beginning. The Filippo brothers gave each and every department head the foot down card, which they could use one time. The costume designer used hers for that yellow sweater that we see Mia wearing in the beginning, which is a good choice. That sweater remained etched in my head when I think about her. So she looks at the disgusting corpse because it's a disgusting corpse, okay? If I had seen that disgusting corpse of a bloated lady and then told her to let her in, this is gross, because the thing is that it's visually so effective what they did. When the ghosties enter, you see the head being thrown back from the person evoking the spirit. The pupils are dilated. Once the lady is in, she sees Riley and she kind of marks him and says, ooh, he's nice, I want him. Ooh, you're gonna come back with us. And there I'm like, ooh. And that scene was so good. It was so well filmed. She kind of tilts her head and then just screams, run, run, run. And I had goosebumps all over the place, even after watching it 10 times. There is just a certain intensity that you cannot replace. I cannot imagine anybody else having done such an amazing job as Sophie had done with Mia's character. There was so much depth and truth behind her and the way she portrayed Mia. The directors were inspired by Bergman's Hour of the Wolf, when you see that the characters are staring right into the camera. After this very weird gathering and Mia absolutely having had the weirdest possession ever, Riley asks her what it felt like, and she said it felt absolutely amazing, being able to let go and feeling such a high. And there you realize this movie is more about just loneliness and wanting to feel connection. This movie very much is also about drug use and what happens to the people who get that first high and want to chase it again and again. One of the directors even said in an interview, he once saw a scene of, I think it was a friend of his, who had taken too much of something and was lying on the ground and was convulsing and wasn't feeling okay, and everyone was taking out their phone and filming him and finding it funny. You see this also reflected in the movie. It was very much something that he had wanted to put into the movie as a personal experience. The typical sentence you always hear when you're writing, write what you know. They took that by the letter and applied it to this movie. Anybody else out there who wants to do their first feature film, I feel like that's the perfect way to go. Write what you know, because once you actually put yourself into a movie, the movie becomes way more real also for the people who are watching. The directors weren't very much the first choice of the studios. When the studios wanted to acquire the movie, they were like, okay, who's gonna direct it? And both are like, well, we are, because they were so attached to the material, and I understand you're the ones who will be able to transfer the idea onto film. So I was very glad, because how many movies could have gone so well if the directors had final say, but then got through the meat grinder of Hollywood and the movie was just crap. I watched a couple of movies where I was like, what is this? Why am I watching this? And then you hear afterwards that the directors didn't have much of a say. They cut out scenes that could have been important. They told the directors they couldn't put certain things in. Having these two YouTubers say, hey, listen, we know we are not experienced. We know we are on YouTube and it doesn't seem like what we are doing applies to what this movie is about. But trust, we know what we are doing. So the next day, Jade's boyfriend, who was Mia's ex-boyfriend, which also comes into play, you will see that throughout the movie, he absolutely wants to hold the hand and have this experience. And Jade is so nice that she's like, okay, you know what? We can do it at my house. So Jade tells Haley and Joss, who absolutely are fantastic. The actors playing Haley and Joss had this vibe about them as soon as they came on set, and they kind of took over. So Haley and Joss, they come into Jade's house. Jade's mom had gone to work. I also like how you see this part of the parent who knows something's up and she knows they're gonna have a party, and she keeps asking Riley, who is like, I think he's not more than 12 or 14, but she says, I know there's gonna be a party. You can tell me, I don't care. And he's just like, what party? I don't know anything about any party. I forgot to tell you. The first time that Mia gets possessed the day before, the 90-second rule was broken by a couple of seconds. And that's gonna come back in a very horrific way, because a tiny little watery dreg stayed back. That's where things already start slowly but surely going sideways. And you know, things are not looking up for Mia. Whenever you see anything with the spirits, it's always from Mia's perspective. It makes it more personal because you have her harrowing experience and you see it through her eyes. So the next day they are at Jade's house, Jade's mom leaves. Daniel, Jade's boyfriend, gets possessed and lands on the floor because he starts getting horny, and it ends up with Jade's dog licking his face and his face being full of dog hair, and it was really disgusting. And I'm so glad it was done with a puppet and they superimposed the dog afterwards with the VFX. That was not okay. That was so disgusting. Ugh. And once he kind of recuperates from that, because I mean, he found it shameful. Obviously, it's teenagers. You had no control over your own body. See, this movie's just filled with tiny little tidbits, and the more you watch it, the more tidbits you notice, and the more tidbits you notice, the more you want to watch it. And then we get my favorite possession montage mixed with drugs, alcohol, and the hand, and things get out of control and people lose their shit, and everything is just, it's so well made, because the thing is that you're actually enjoying yourself while watching it. You're seeing them having fun. You see how they get possessed by various spirits. By the way, Mia sings and it's so good, and just the facial expressions and the special effects makeup. You know how I am with special effects makeup. I'm like, it's so good. It's so good. I love it so much. And then you see that Riley, who's just watching from afar, wants to try it. Jade doesn't want to try it even once. Some people are just like that. They will not want to try it. They're like, oh, I don't know, man. Doesn't look like something that one should do. And she's very adamant about it, that Riley doesn't try it. Jade then leaves the room with her boyfriend, and Riley looks at Mia like some kind of guiding hand, like, hey, please let me do it. I'll only do it for 50 seconds, I swear. This is where the movie really takes a dark turn because he gets possessed by Mia's mom, Rhea. And you know it's her in the very beginning because he looks at her and he's like, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to do it. She thinks that she died by accident. She took too many sleeping pills. She didn't realize she did. And then she tried to claw her way out of the room, which was locked, and the dad couldn't rescue her on time. And we also get a flashback in the movie where the dad drags her mom's body out and tries to give her CPR. And that's also one of the things that had inspired one of the Filippo brothers, because he said he remembered his grandfather when he had, I think, a stroke. I'm not sure. The dad tried to resuscitate him. The granddad had vomit on him, and the dad had this vomit speck on his beard. In this movie, it was kept in. When the dad tried to resuscitate the mom, he had vomit specks in his beard. It's these tiny little details. I know it's weird. I know you'll be like, okay, wait, but on the other hand, it's these very real stories that influence movies, that make the movie feel way more realistic and more believable than if it was just some clean-cut Hollywood bullshit. When you see certain Hollywood horror movies, you're like, who wrote this? Why? Imaginary? On the other one with the swimming pool, I don't remember what it's called. I'm sure I'm gonna insert the poster somewhere here. Night Swim, I think. Ugh. Back to Riley, who gets possessed by Mia's mom, and Mia doesn't want to let the session end because it's her mom. Only the problem is that her mom gets replaced by another ghost who's way more vicious and angry and actually wants the boy's soul. Thing is, in the lore, if you die while the spirit is in you, your soul gets dragged into limbo. And a fresh boy soul is obviously very yummy for these spirits. There is suddenly this realization of the spirit of, oh, I'm gonna kill this boy. And starts just smashing the head against the table. And at some point, he even wants to pluck out an eye. And they did that with the special effects. All of this movie is done with special effects, without any computer graphics, because the twins were like, CGI ages very poorly. So they wanted everything to be kept very realistic. And that's why I'm also very sure that special effects with props and blood will never, ever go away from this industry, because CGI just does not do the same thing. CGI is not as visceral and not as realistic as special effects will ever be. Props to the special effects department. The special effects and the color grading were done by Kojo Magic. I feel like this movie would not be half as immersive and effective without the stunning work of Kojo, the Adelaide-based post-production and VFX studio behind the entire film. Not only did they handle both post and visual effects, they also came on as investors, meaning that they believed in this project from the very beginning. They have also worked on The Babadook, The Nightingale, and You Won't Be Alone, and have a very long-standing relationship with Causeway Films, who were the ones who produced the movie. The man behind the magic? Marty Pepper. He's the executive producer of post and VFX. The possession scenes relied also on Kojo's digital wizardry, whether it was a very subtle prosthetic augmentation or more overt supernatural effects. Color grading wise, the goal was very much authenticity and to keep the movie as realistic looking as possible. They did not want it too over stylized, just atmospheric enough to give it that horror feel. It's moody, it's tactile, it's warm, and it gave this movie its signature look. Mia comes to the hospital. Riley's mother and Jade are like, get out. It's your fault. You should have never allowed him to do that. And on one hand, I understand. On the other hand, I'm like, okay, she's 17. I'm laughing because which 17-year-old has a clear mind, especially after having drunk and taken some stuff and being on a high from being possessed by spirits? I get that Jade would have been clear-minded, but Jade left the room, and I'm not blaming her at all because she has her own stuff going on. So after the hospitalization, Jade's boyfriend says to Mia, okay, I'll drive you home. And she's like, can you please stay with me? And that's again where you get this lonely feeling because she's just like trying to find some human connection. He agrees then to sleep at her place so that she doesn't feel too lonely. And then we get this absolutely crazy scene. Mia gets this dream of this ghost lady who then crawls up to Jade's boyfriend and starts sucking on his toes. It was so gross. Luckily, they used a prop, but still, it was disgusting. He wakes up and he's so grossed out that he goes away. And then Mia decides to take the hand and be like, talk to me, and hopes that it's her mother. And obviously, the spirit who lingered, the watery lady, presents herself as her mother. And I say that because you see visually that the spirit is not her mother. She's showing very much different signs of death than her mother would have. Her mother died of an overdose. The other spirit died of drowning. And you see the small little subtle details that when the movie moves along, you see them more and more in detail. Rhea, Mia's mom, or at least who she thinks is Mia's mom, says that Riley's still possessed and she needs to help him. Every time that her mother appears, you hear the gurgling sound of the water in the background. It's like a whole thing that you get immersed in. And since it's Mia's point of view and she's blinded by the sight of her mother, she's not aware of it. You as a viewer can see what's happening, but she kind of looks past it or ignores the warning signs because it's her mother. We then meet Cole again because Mia goes back and wants to help out, and Joe, he's like, okay, I know where to find Cole, we can ask him what to do, maybe he has an answer. Cole then says, listen, these spirits can mimic people and make you think they're somebody else, and that's why my brother ended up the way that he did. Mia is so desperate to save Riley that she says, hey, what if we gave him the hand, connected him to that world, and then blew out the candle this time, because she feels like the candle wasn't blown out the last time and that's why a spirit remained. Jade kind of agrees, so she goes to the hospital, she gives Riley the hand and she blows out the candle and she does it again and blows out the candle. Doesn't see a difference. She holds the hand herself and says, talk to me. And then instead of saying, I'll let you in, she says, let me in. She sees this tiny little girl and she's like, is the boy there? Do you see him? And when she says, let me in, she goes into this limbo, and it's such a horrific scene. You see this limbo, and actually the scene was supposed to go on for, I think, 2.5 minutes, where we would get way, way, way more detail. It was so violent and so horrific that the brothers decided against it and made it more of a subtle visual thing where you kind of got the gist of it. I was really very much taken aback by this scene because you could really see Riley just through these writhing bodies all clawing at his soul. The directors did everything they could as to not traumatize Joe Bird, who played Riley. They were trying to shield him from all of this horror stuff as much as they could. It's very important in horror, especially if you work with kids, that you keep it as pleasant an experience for them as you possibly can without traumatizing them in any way. The Exorcist, she had her back broken. She wasn't able to function anymore properly. She's a big icon, but I can't watch this movie without getting snuffy vibes from it. Mia goes to him and she's like, on one hand, her mother's spirit told her that she's sorry for what she did and she never meant to hurt her. However, as the movie progresses, the spirit that she sees afterwards of her mother, the spirit that is possessing her and manipulating her with her mother's visions, told her, no, I would never do that. Why would I do that? No way. Not me. Max confronts her and says, hey, she did take her life and she left a note. And Mia cannot accept that. She says, no, you're lying. It's not true. You're lying. And that's where she completely spirals out of control and she locks herself in her room. That's where really you get to the final stages of the possession, and she completely gets overtaken by this vision of her dad entering the room. It's not her dad. You can see by his face that it's not her dad. It's actually a spirit, but she doesn't see that. And he's attacking her. She has the scissors in the hand. The problem is, while the spirit is attacking her, her father in the meantime can hear her scream and sees her writhing on the floor and wants to help her. And then she stabs him in the neck, which is so bad. I felt so bad. It was like so heartbreaking to watch because he was the last familial connection she had. in this world. And then we get one of the most heartbreaking scenes. Mia goes to the hospital and she has kind of been so brainwashed by these spirits that she really thinks to help Riley, she needs to off him. She puts him in a wheelchair and she wheels him down towards traffic. I feel like everyone sees the ending a little differently. The way that I see the ending is that Mia pushes Riley towards traffic. And as she does so, and she waits, she sees the ugly ghosty inside of Riley, or what she thinks she sees, because she's being manipulated by these visions from the spirits. Her mother, not mother, who now has completely taken form of a drowning victim, holds her and makes one big mistake. She says, "We'll have him forever." You don't see much except you see Mia thrown into traffic and dying. Many people think that it's Jade because you see Jade going to the hospital, realizing that Mia pulled one over her by telling her that she should come to her house so that Mia could get Riley from the hospital. Jade sees her carting off Riley towards traffic, so she runs after her. However, I don't see it that way. I think that Mia, in her last-ditch effort to have a clear mind, realized with the sentence, "We'll have him forever," that the spirit was not her mother, that she threw herself into traffic and ended it that way. She lands in the same position as the kangaroo did, in the middle of traffic. That was... She wakes up all banged up and scratched as a ghost because as soon as she looks down on her hands, her fingers are all bent out of shape. And when she looks at her reflection, she's not there. No one sees her as she walks through the halls. She even sees her dad, but her dad's face is very blurry. You see Riley's feeling better. You see that he's going away from the hospital with his family. And as she sees her dad walking away, there is this light. I feel like he's been summoned up. And then she's surrounded by darkness, and suddenly you just see this candlelight, and somebody says, "Talk to me." And she's face to face with the crowd, which was like, whoa! Well, the guy who's holding the hand goes like, whoa! And that's where the movie ends. I'm very much looking forward to the sequel. I also know that they filmed a prequel, posted it online, but they had to take it down. There were a couple of complaints. As of filming right now, I know that Talk to Me has been confirmed by A24, even though they usually don't do sequels. So I'm glad that they're putting some faith into these two directors, and it will be written and directed by the same people. I highly doubt that the same cast will come back. I'm hoping to see something a little more about the lore of the hand and maybe a little bit more information on where it came from, if we will see Mia's spirit again, and if we get to see a little bit more of the limbo. That would be a lot of fun. We did say that we would talk about the 90 seconds rule, and I find it also very important because when they talk to Cole afterwards at the bus station, he is also very shocked that they let a child like Riley touch the hand at all, let alone for longer than 90 seconds. It's also a bit of a metaphor for drug use itself, because even while using drugs, you have a certain amount that you would take so that you do not overdose. And the same thing goes here with the hand, with the 90-second rule. You shouldn't take more because otherwise it will take you over. Mia has gone through a lot. She kind of is trying to find some way of connecting or feeling something other than the grief she's feeling. In the end, you have Riley, who is forced to abstain from the hand, beating himself to a pulp every time that he wakes up, which is horrible. I mean, there is this one hospital scene where he wakes up again and he is taken over by the spirits again, who are trying to off him so that they can take his spirit. And you have Mia, who just keeps going deeper and just can't let go because of this connection she has to her mother, who overdosed on pills. You see where this is going? She tries to go deeper even though it's killing her. The final act is a tragic overdose guided by the wrong voice. A false comfort that she just couldn't give up. The movie absolutely wrecked me, and yet I keep wanting to watch it again and again because it has so much love for detail and for the craft of movie making. What really got me was Mia's character, the ache to connect, the loneliness, and just wanting to feel something again, and it finally just destroying her. Talk to Me isn't just scary, it's devastating, and in my opinion, one of the best horror movie debuts I've seen in a while. So what did you think about the movie? Did Talk to Me affect you as much as it did me? I'm pretty sure it affects everyone differently because we all have very much different life experiences. Let me know what your favorite moment was. Let me know if you are looking forward to Talk to Me, the sequel, and to bring her back. You know, there are these directors where you just are excited to see what they bring out next. And I have this with Jordan Peele. I had it with Ari Aster before he did Beau is Afraid. Sorry. God damn it, that movie, it was just very Kafkaesque. I was there like, what the heck? And then you have this giant symbolism. If you've watched it, you know what I'm talking about with the yeah, that one. I'm your dad. Where was that? Where was that? The beginning was fantastic. And then you just veered off into a freaking direction where I was like, what? Where? Why? No, don't. You started off so well and then you had to go and do that. Okay, fine. I'm still looking forward to his new movie. Alex Garland, even though he is taking a back seat. Osgood Perkins is also one of them. These are all directors where I'm like so excited every time they bring out a new movie because they have such awesome pacing and camera work and bring in experiences where you're like, yep. And yes, Coralie Farja also with Revenge. The Substance wasn't so mine, so I'm really looking forward to the next movie she does because she is so good. So this was me screaming into the void. If you can't find me, just follow my screams. Okay, bye.